Colasetti,
Yes.
Miss Bishop,
Yes.
Miss Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
As Palestinians, we have witnessed the mass murder of our families and our friends and their families. As of today, 10% of Gaza is either dead, seriously injured, or missing. That is 1 in 10 people. 1 in 10 people. If we compare that to this room, that is one of you council members, and we probably have almost 100 people in the audience. That's 10 to 15 people in the audience. This room would be much emptier. As Palestinians, we have witnessed the silencing of our voices over and over again, most recently from Vice President Kamala Harris, who instead of engaging with us, calling for an end to genocide, she shut us down, blaming us for a Trump presidency, as if there was a greater crime than supporting and direct complicity in genocide, as if the crushing of our families abroad and our souls here was not enough of a crime for us. Palestinians actually have to be very cautious when speaking publicly about Palestine because the genocidal occupiers threaten family members as a standard. I personally know dozens of folks who've had to take down a social media post or walk back from a claim to protect their loved ones in occupied Palestine. Some of us take the risk and some of us don't have a risk. Both of my parents' family lines were ethnically cleansed from Palestine decades ago. But Palestine lives in us, in our clothing, in our food, in our generosity, in our courage, and most importantly, in our sumud. Sumud is an Arabic word used by and for Palestinians. It's often translated into resilience, but it far exceeds resilience. Resilience is an immediate reaction. Sumud is consistent and persistent. It is still standing after 75 years of occupation. It is smiling and finishing your cup of coffee while being kidnapped and taken hostage by the occupier. Sumud is such a powerful concept that there are many research articles on the topic. Sumud lives on in us as Palestinians, whether or not we are allowed to access the soil and air of our homes and land. Illinois is home to the largest Palestinian community in America, in the Chicago area, and Champaign-Urbana is home to more than 60 Palestinian families. There's a risk with speaking out, and this is one of the reasons many Palestinians have not been present at City Council. The other is that immense toll it takes to tell your family's story, to only be met with silence, not even a single or simple "I'm sorry." I've personally done this many times, enough times that I'm not as fazed by it, but it is immensely painful to go through. But today, through much cajoling and convincing, I have been able to gather some of the Palestinians in town. I've advised them to remain anonymous if they prefer to protect themselves here and their families on our stolen homeland, so I ask for your indulgence if they do not share their whole name or city of residence. Their presence today is a sign of our sumud. Just last week, we paid for a Palestinian man to be raped by Israeli prison guards, fully recorded and later televised. I paid for the bombs that burned our babies alive. Her paycheck went straight to a child's head that, as our media put it, ran into a sniper's bullet. They paid for the bombs, signed, "Finish them." He over there paid to shut down a border and starve a population. Just last week, we were forced to pay for a genocide. So it's time for us all to take many moments of silence.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda. I have lost 100 family members. I have personally lost 100 family members. My entire extended family is no longer mine. We don't have all their body to bury. We do not have any place to bury them all. And this story is not unique to my family. More than 100 families have been fully erased from the civil registry in Gaza. Every man, woman, and child in the family, entire bloodline, gone.
Hello, my name is Rola, and I am a resident of Champaign. And I would like to just say, I eat while they literally starve to death. I eat while they literally starve to death. For 10 months, I've done this. I eat, I cry, I pray. I pray for help and assistance, and then I find out my local city taxes fund this. I found out my city invests in a fund that directly invests in the apartheid state of Israel. So I cry some more. My city, Champaign, sends my money to starve my family. How do I carry on? I work to care for my family here, and in return, I send bombs to my family over there. Thank you.
I'm Yasmin, and I'm also a resident of Champaign. And I need to remind you, just like every time I come here and speak, that every single one of us Palestinians here is coming with an absolutely shattered heart. We are having to be advocates for our families that are under the ground, that are decaying because they were brutally murdered. Okay, we are having to grieve them and to come and speak on their behalf while knowing most likely that they will continue to be dehumanized. But we still come with hope because that is something that we Palestinians have inherited since forever. And that will live on forever, as the first speaker, Dua, beautifully said. I turned on the news, and for the first time in what truly feels like a lifetime, I heard good news. The International Court of Justice just announced that Israel was an occupying power, an apartheid state violating international law. Surprise, surprise. The court placed responsibility with all states and the United Nations to end these violations of international law. I breathed a sigh of relief. It will be different now. The US will stop with the unconditional, unwavering support for these atrocities. That was more than a month ago, and we haven't seen any shifts on a national level, on a state level, or even amongst those closest to us in government, our city officials. Not even a consideration to us as their community members. A moment of silence for every Palestinian murdered through the city of Champaign's funding of genocide.
Hello, my name is Hanan. I'm a daughter of Champaign. I was born here. I grew up here, went to the public schools here. I recognize some of you as my colleagues' parents that I haven't seen in years. And this is the first time I come to City Council, and as you see, the room is full. I don't know if it's usually this full, but I definitely benefited from hearing about Champaign's issues. I am a Palestinian and I am an American. I personally have family that never came back. We don't know what happened to them. And it wasn't in Gaza, it was in the West Bank. There was no Hamas, there was no war. They were sitting in their homes with their families. And all of a sudden, Israeli soldiers came in, picked them up, walked away. My cousin, she was pregnant at the time. Her daughter didn't see her dad for 2 years. They didn't know where he was. They didn't know what happened to him. When they came and asked Israeli officials, they said, "We don't have anyone by this name in our prisons." He wasn't a human being. He was an animal to them. And so when I saw what was happening in Gaza, I knew who we were dealing with. We were dealing with people who looked at Gazans as animals, as monkeys, like Netanyahu said. These were not people that deserved to live. And every time a child was killed, in a school, in a mosque, in a church, Netanyahu stood up and he said, "We killed terrorists." The kids that were blown apart were terrorists. And everyone else on social media who wanted to justify Israel's actions, they were actors. Yeah, they were actors, weren't they? I look at my child, my daughter, and when she talks, I hear Hind Rajab, the daughter of a good family in Gaza, who was sitting in the car asking the Palestinian Red Crescent, begging them to come save her because the Israeli tanks were all around her. And on the phone call, they heard the shootings of all her family. Her whole family got killed in front of her eyes. She was only 7. That's as old as my son. And Hind Rajab sounds just like my daughter. And every time I hear my daughter talk, I hear Hind. Sorry. And so to come here today and hear that 1,000 emails came, to not talk about this conflict, to just let it go. Don't talk about it and don't let anyone talk about it. What about the kids? Those poor kids that are getting killed in the name of terrorism. Who's the terrorist? Who's the person killing children? If it was any child in Champaign that got killed, you would all stand up and fight them, wouldn't you? You would all get up and fight for that one child that got killed justly and justly. There's no child that gets killed justly. But when I saw the story of Hind, I live through it every single day. I go to work and I open the computer and I see Hind. I see Hind over and over and over. When my daughter is yelling to me, "Mom, get me corn at Aldi's," I see Hind. And I can't take it anymore. Champaign can't take it anymore. When I pay taxes at Aldi's or Meijer or Walmart, I'm going, God, please don't let this go to Gaza. Please don't let this pay for a bomb in Gaza. I don't want to kill anyone and I don't want to be part of this. I've considered leaving the whole US, the state that I grew up, the country that I grew up in, because I don't want God to ask me on the day of judgment, did you pay for this? Did you know where your money was going? You worked for that money. You worked really hard for that money and you were honest. But where was it going? And so I asked the city council in Champaign, don't let Champaign as a city help paying for this genocide. This is a real killing of children. Our children are important in Champaign, as are the children in Gaza. We fight for the children of Champaign, and we should fight for the children of Gaza and anywhere else in the world. We're not singling out children in Gaza for any reason other than they're getting killed. 14,000 children were killed. And you know what made me really clear on what was happening? When I saw Muhammad Abul Qumsan's 2 twins that we were raising money for so their mom could get a C-section in Gaza. He left to get their birth certificates, and an Israeli bomb shot at their apartment specifically. It was a whole tower. And they were able to just shoot one apartment building in that tower and not knock down the building. And there goes his kids. And I leave you with that. Please reconsider all these emails you're getting. Thank you.